Good morning, everybody. My name is Rami Jurado. I'm an attorney here in the state of Florida. Today's class, I'm going to deal with how to work with foreigners who want to invest in real estate, the different things that you should have in mind. And then also I want to address all your questions, whether it's about real estate, immigration, litigation, probate. I like to be a resource for all the realtors. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A. So let me start. Our law firm, it's located in Miami. It's called Jurado & Associates, and we practice in different areas of law. We do real estate, probate, immigration, litigation, trademarks, copyrights, and of course, we deal a lot with international community. Thank you so much for joining me today. Let me start by sharing my screen. Just 1 second. Okay, I hope everybody can see my screen now, and I can start the presentation. If you don't see it, let me know. So there we are, Jurado & Associates. As I was telling you, our law firm here in Miami. We like to be seen as a resource for the real estate community. And today's class is very interesting because we do get a lot of foreigners that want to invest here in Florida. They want to use real estate, whether it's for investment visas or they want to use for different things, or just simply to protect their assets in the United States. So how to work with foreign nationals who want to buy real estate in Florida? Well, there's different ways. One of the things that I tell my realtor friends is let them know about financing. A lot of foreign nationals are used to buying everything cash, and well, that's all great. But the fact that they can finance in the United States, it's really an asset because it's very easy for them. I would like to say it's even easier than for US people to obtain financing. The way that it works is they just simply have to show their financial statements from their country. They have to show that they have a job or that they own a company. And most of the time they're able to buy with as little, I've seen it, 20% down, 30% down. So a lot of times a foreigner would come in with, I don't know, $600,000, $700,000, just wanting to buy one apartment. And then we let them know, hey, guess what? You could actually finance. And now they end up buying 2 or 3 apartments. And of course, you as a realtor can assist them throughout that purchase. So very important. Yes, we can finance. Foreigners can finance with as little as 20 to 30% down. And it's extremely beneficial to them because in our countries, I'm Peruvian, a lot of South American countries and European countries, the financing terms are not as friendly. You cannot amortize over 30 years. If you do get finance, it's probably going to be over 15 years, 10 years. Here in the United States, you're able to amortize over 30 years, even 40 years. Now, I understand interest rates might have gone up a little, but they're still not as bad as in our countries. So if you're a real estate agent and your client's looking to buy cash, let them know financing is available for them. We can help them throughout the whole process. We do the closings throughout the whole state of Florida, and we can walk them through obtain the financing, explaining all the documents to them so that they understand that they were going to use to just buy one property, they can end up buying a lot more. Another thing that we like to discuss with foreigners is FIRPTA, which is, a special real estate withholding tax. Inheritance taxes is so important. Formation of entity for legal liability purposes and title insurance. Title insurance is also something that we don't have in any other country. Title insurance is unique to the United States, and it's something that really guarantees you that when you buy a property, it's going to be yours. And if somebody makes a claim or something, well, guess what? You have insurance to fall into. So these are the things that we like to discuss. So let's start with FIRPTA. A lot of people are concerned with FIRPTA. What can I do? So basically, when non-US citizens, right, they intend to sell real estate, they must adhere to certain rules. FIRPTA is an acronym for the Foreign Investment in Real Property Act. It's a law that governs taxation and withholding of foreign persons selling US real estate. Before, in the good old days, foreigners would come, buy real estate, they were able to sell it, and no withholding was done. They never paid any taxes on the gain because that's it. They sold it, took the money. Well, the IRS said, no, we no longer want to do that. So if foreigners are selling real estate in the United States, we want the title company to serve as a withholding agent, okay? So us as the real estate attorneys, as a title company, we serve as a withholding agent. And from the sales price, so not from the gain, from the sales price, we have to send a percentage to the IRS. That percentage can vary. It could be 10%, could be 15%. And in certain cases, even if the foreigner owns the real estate that is being sold, we may not have to send anything. So it really does depend. So let's talk about it. So when is it that we have to send money as the closing agent or title company? So Foreigners come in, they'll buy real estate in their own name. That's a big no-no, but it happens a lot. They're considered a foreigner. So if they're selling a property that's less than 300,000 and the person that's buying it will reside there, then there is no withholding, right? If the person that's buying it is buying it in their own name and it's less than 300,000, as a title company, we don't have to send anything to the IRS. If the property is more than 300,000 but less than $1 million, right, and the person that's buying it, it's going to reside there, then we actually have to do a withholding of 10%, and that is what we would have to send to the IRS. If the property is being sold for over $1 million, regardless of it's going to reside there, and the owner is a foreigner, then we have to send 15% withholding. So normally, the withholding that a title company or a law firm would have to do when doing the closing is 15% of the sales price if the person that's selling it is a foreigner. So I want to talk to you guys about who is considered a foreigner. It has to do with immigration status, but sometimes it doesn't, okay? So for example, you can have somebody in the United States on a student visa, and they might still be considered a foreigner even though they've been here for 3 to 4 years. You might have somebody here with a social security number and you're like, yes, not a foreigner. They might still be a foreigner because they don't have the right visa. They just simply got a social way back when everybody received a social, and they're still considered a foreigner. If you have a property owned by an LLC, that LLC, so let's talk about it. If it's a single member, so if it's one owner of the LLC, that LLC is still considered a foreigner if it's a disregarded entity, okay? If that LLC made the election to be treated as a corporation, then it may not be a foreigner. So it's the same LLC, but one is a disregarded entity, and the other one is it made the election to be treated as a corporation. It's a very big difference, because one of the reasons why FIRPTA was enacted is because they wanted to tax people before they took the money out. If it's a corporation that owns the property, then they have to file taxes, so FIRPTA shouldn't apply. So we have an LLC with just one owner. Let's think about it. Is it a disregarded entity or is it a corporation? If a corporation, not a foreigner. Disregarded entity, yes, foreigner, FIRPTA still applies. If it's an LLC with 2 owners, even if both are foreigners, then it should also not be considered a foreigner, the LLC. Now, what do we need to show? We're going to have to show that that LLC has a tax ID. We're going to have to show that that LLC was correctly formed. We're going to have to show all of those things in order for us to say that it's not a foreigner, okay? And it can't be that they just formed it literally 2 weeks before selling the property. The IRS, it's all for tax planning, but it's a big crime to do tax evasion. So no, that's not going to work. I have situations where they come into the table, they're selling the property, they realize that FIRPTA is gonna apply, they do some quick claim deed with I don't know who, they transfer the property to the LLC, and now they say FIRPTA does not apply anymore. It does not work like that. If you do something to evade taxes, then the IRS is not gonna like it, and they're gonna hold the agent, meaning the realtor, the title company, or the attorney liable, not just the seller. And by the way, the FIRPTA responsibilities fall on the buyer, not the seller, because the IRS doesn't really have a hold of the seller. The seller is a foreigner. So they put in the responsibility to collect this FIRPTA in order from on the buyer, so that the seller can do whatever they want, but the buyer is going to be responsible. My recommendation is, if you have a client that wants to buy real estate, have them talk to an attorney to tell them, how can we structure this so that FIRPTA doesn't apply at the title company level, at the closing level, so that later you can do your taxes however you want to do them. But when you're selling real estate, they're not going to withhold that 15 or 10%. One of the things that we also do when it's too late, right? So FIRPTA already applies, we're at the closing table, what can we do? It's something called the withholding certificate. So that way, we help our clients kind of decrease the tax responsibility. Because let's say that they bought a property, maybe, I don't know, 2 months ago for $500,000. And the person that's buying their property, they're buying it for $600,000. 2 months, it's only been 2 months. And the person that's buying it is an investor. So the withholding amount is 15%. So if you think about it, the gain between the $500,000 and the $600,000, it's only $100,000. So really, they should only be taxed on that gain, just like any US person would. However, if FIRPTA applies, right, then they're going to be required to send 15% to the IRS, which is Let's see, so it's $600,000 times 15%, $90,000. If nothing is done, this person is going to be required to send $90,000 to the IRS, right? And that's even, we're not even taking commissions into account. So they may end up having to put money out of pocket to send to the IRS. That is, it seems crazy, but it does happen. So to help fix this, we can do something called the withholding certificate. So according to the IRS, the withholding amount on the sale of US property can be adjusted if the IRS issues a withholding certificate. A withholding certificate is an application for reduced withholding based on the gain of a sale instead of the selling price. So we will tell the IRS, listen, we sold the property for $600, but we bought it for $500. The difference, the gain is only $100,000. They should be taxed maybe 20% of that, $20,000, not $90,000 like you wanted us to send you. So if the 15% of the selling price is more than the tax you will owe on the sale, then a withholding certificate may be ideal for you, right? For the client. Important features to know about the withholding certificate is that we could also include improvements. So if they bought it for $500,000 and they invested $50K, we can show that to the IRS in a mini tax return that we do, and they're able to say, well, the withholding amount is actually even less because now your gain is only $50,000, not even $100,000. As long as the withholding certificate is done at least 1 day before closing, we're able to close. So it's not like we have to wait for the IRS to tell us how much to withhold. However, the title company is not going to be able to release that money to the seller until they receive the notification from the IRS, letting them know how much is it that the tax liability is going to be. So the withholding certificate helps because now the foreigner doesn't have to send all of the money to the IRS and then see if they're going to get it or not. But it doesn't eliminate FIRPTA. It's just kind of a way to help the IRS see what the real tax liability should be. And then the person can simply understand that that money is going to stay with the title company or with the attorney until the IRS says, okay, fine, this is a withholding amount, this is what you owe, the rest can go back to the seller. So it's something that we do as a last resort when the people didn't plan, appropriately to own real estate. My advice, by probably setting up an LLC with at least 2 members, or if it's an LLC with just 1 member, elect to be a corporation, but then you need to understand the tax ramifications. I usually don't like to advise people to put real estate on corporations because of the deductions and because of tax-wise, it's not as beneficial. And then LLC is more beneficial most of the time. And that is why I recommend usually if you're going to buy with an LLC, have at least 2 members. Even if one owes, 99% and the other one 1%, you still have 2 members. So you're still going to be able to avoid FIRPTA at the title company level, right? There's still situations that you have to deal when you have an LLC owned by foreigners when you do your taxes internally. But at least at the title company level, they're not going to have to send that money out. So it is so important to properly plan before. And if you have a foreigner, if you're listing a property, it's so important to know whether they're considered a foreigner or not. What you don't want is for people to find this out at the closing table, to realize that they're going to have to send all of the money to the IRS and then they're not going to be able to keep anything. Those are bad surprises. So when you're listing, that's the time to find out. We have a little drawing here, right? So first, is the seller a foreigner? Then yes. Will the acquired property be used for personal residence? And there is a confusion about that. If the property is less than $300,000, the people that are buying it, it doesn't have to be their homestead for it to qualify for no withholding under FIRPTA. They just have to show that they're going to be residing there, or say they have to sign an affidavit for more than 50% of the time that they're going to rent it. So what does that mean? If they buy it and they're going to rent it for 3 months in a year, then they should reside there for 3 months and 1 day. Then they could still sign the FIRPTA affidavit and the seller doesn't have to send anything to the IRS. Or if it's more than $300,000, they can still sign the FIRPTA affidavit and the withholding amount is reduced to 10%. This is so important. You want to make sure that they understand, the buyers, if they're going to reside there or if their family member is going to reside there and you have a foreigner that's selling, we can definitely do something with those affidavits to reduce the withholding amount, or depending on the price, we could even eliminate it. So I want to be able to be involved from the beginning. Okay, so let me give you guys a real life example. So to facilitate the understanding on this issue, we'll apply a real life example. For instance, let's say that we have two individuals, right? Jean and William. Jean is a French citizen who wants to sell a vacation home located in Miami, Florida. William wants to buy Jean's vacation home, but since Jean is non-US citizen and does not reside in the country, both parties will have to deal with FIRPTA. FIRPTA is a withholding tax, meaning it refers to an amount of money that is set aside to pay the potential taxes. It's not the taxes itself. As Jean is earning US income when selling his vacation home, he needs to pay an estimated tax on that income. The IRS is going to hold that amount until Jean files a US tax return. So when we send this 15%, when we send this 10%, doesn't mean the IRS is going to keep it forever. It forces the foreigner to file a tax return to say what the tax amount is really due, including all of their US income, so that now they're taxed accordingly. It's just that it takes a long time. You know, it could take a year for them to see any money back, and that's why people don't like it. And that is why there's different ways to basically avoid FIRPTA withholding. We could also use something called a 1031 exchange. So if you have a foreigner that wants to invest in real estate, best scenario, set up an LLC. Well, let us set up an LLC for them, have the LLC be owned by two foreigners. If they're two foreigners, that's fine. And then if their plan is to buy real estate, sell it, keep buying real estate, and with that money, we can do something called a 1031 exchange. A 1031 exchange allows an investor to buy real estate, right? Delay the tax that is due on the capital gains as long as they use all of that money in the purchase of a new property. So it's actually a great thing for US people, for foreigners, because you're able to basically buy real estate, let it appreciate in value, use all of that appreciated in value, sell it, and use all of the money to buy other real estate. And you can keep doing this. For estate planning purposes for US people, it's actually fantastic because when you pass away and your heirs get that property, they're going to get it at the market value at that time. And you have been delaying all of these taxes throughout this time. So in reality, nobody's going to pay those taxes at the state tax level. So it's actually really interesting to do 1031 exchanges for US people. And I can talk to you guys privately about that. I think it's a great technique to basically delay the taxes, but then no taxes are going to be paid because your heirs will receive it upon your passing and they'll get it at market rate. You know, they'll get it at market value when they do inherit it. So it's actually a great technique. For foreigners, it has a little situation because if FIRPTA applies, right, if they own it in their own name, they can still do 1031 exchange, but now they're going to have to keep the money with the title company and they're going to have to use money out of their own pocket to put it in the new property until the title company gets the letter from the IRS. So it gets a little complicated. However, if the foreigners have done their previous tax planning and we set up a US LLC with at least 2 members, now we can just keep buying property. No money has to stay in the with the title company because FIRPTA doesn't apply at the title company level. And we can keep on using that money to buy more real estate. And if you combine this with mortgages, even better. Because now you have a foreigner that had $700,000. He was only going to buy 1 property, but now he's going to buy 3 properties with 3 mortgages, buy them, let them appreciate in value. You're selling them, you're getting commission on that. Now they're buying new property. They're not paying any taxes right now. Everything is, delayed until later. When later? It depends, whenever they stop doing this. So I love 1031 exchanges combined with LLCs for foreigners, combined with FIRPTA not having to be applied because the LLC is owned by 2 foreigners or more, or by 1 foreigner and a US person. It doesn't really matter. As long as it has 2 owners, FIRPTA will not apply. And why do I love all of this? Because sadly, foreigners are not informed that if they buy stuff in their own name, or even if in a single member LLC, the state tax, it's going to apply. Now, us as US people, we have a huge exemption, 6 million, 12 million, it only keeps getting better for us. We don't have to worry about state tax, but foreigners don't. Foreigners have, I think, a $60,000 exemption from state tax, and the rest is taxed at 40%. It's a lot of money. So let me give you some examples. Let's say that you help Joel buy a nice apartment in Brickell, and that apartment appreciated, and now it's worth $700,000, right? So Joel sadly passes away. The apartment is worth $700,000, and he has it in a single member LLC. He was told, form an LLC, he formed it, put the property there. All the family members are thinking, oh, we're taken care of because it's a single member LLC, we don't have to worry about it. Well, Even a multi-member LLC, you still have to worry about it with state tax unless you do proper planning. But let's just say this is a single member LLC. So now we have a property that market rate is 700,000. I told you we have an exemption of 60,000 for foreigners. So I'm going to deduct 60,000. We have $640,000 left. That $640,000, it's going to be taxed at 40%. So times 40. So before the heirs get a penny from the $700,000 apartment, they're going to have to send to the IRS $256,000. They're going to be forced to sell the property or come up with this money out of pocket, just because, sadly, the person didn't properly plan. State tax, it's horrible for foreigners if they don't properly plan. So what do I mean by properly plan? Well, there's different ways, right? If you have a LLC with 2 members and one of the members dies, that membership interest, whether it be 50%, 90%, this happens to US people too, has to go through probate, right? Thus subject to state tax. Unless maybe there was a trust set up that owned that membership interest, then there's no more probate. Or if the language in the operating agreement complies, and this is really risky because the law is always changing, with certain language that allows for the immediate transfer, or if it's owned by husband and wife, or if it has, it could get really complicated. But sticking to foreigners, if the membership interest goes through probate, it's going to be subject to state tax. So that doesn't avoid probate. So having an LLC with 10 members doesn't avoid probate because the membership interest that the foreign owns still has to go through state tax. However, if the foreigner had a trust that owned his membership interest, then we don't have to go to probate because the trust owns the membership interest. And there's also other things that we can take advantage of with proper planning for the foreigner. And it is so important because we do probates all over the state of Florida. And we deal with a lot of foreign-owned real estate because it doesn't matter whether you're a foreigner from Peru, from Pakistan, from wherever you are. If you have Florida property, you're going to have to deal with Florida probate, right? Because nobody has jurisdiction over that property unless it's a Florida judge. Unless you did your proper planning, you had a trust, or you set up some type of structure. That's why it's so important. State tax, 40% for foreigners. They only have a $60,000 exemption, and it is so important to plan. Now, there are some treaties, but they're so limited in number that have state tax treaties with the US that may eliminate certain types of assets from the 40% state taxation. Some treaties, like some countries might be Australia, Austria, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Netherlands. I'm not saying they're exempt from state tax. That's not what I'm saying. They may be able to eliminate certain types of assets. It's not a for sure thing. So absolutely, if you have a foreign client, they need to plan not to be subject to FIRPTA, and they need to plan how to deal with state tax when they do pass away. Okay, now, business entities. Yes, we can plan with business entities. One of the things that we have done is set up US LLCs owned by foreign companies, and that way there's no state tax because when the foreigner dies, the 2 companies still exist. We have the Florida LLC owning real estate, and we have the foreign company still existing. So that's one way to deal with state tax. Again, it's up to the client what they want to do. Single LLCs in Florida, starting on 2015, don't really offer the same liability protection that multi-member LLCs do. So I don't typically like to form them unless there's a specific reason, okay? It's so important that once an entity's formed, it's not the end all be all. They have to keep on maintaining the entity, file the tax returns, or keep on renewing the company every year. And of course, we can help with that. In Florida, you can have an LLC that's either member managed or manager managed, and the clients can decide. The managers don't have to be members. They could. Members are the owners. They don't have to be, but they can if they want to. They need to understand that they need to file tax returns for the LLC. It's not like you just have the LLC and buy. Basically, the LLC will give each of their members, owners, a K-1 reflecting their, their interest in the company, and they will be responsible for filing those tax returns. So we like to talk about all of that with the client to explain to them the different scenarios, and then they can decide which way they want to go. One of the things that it's also very interesting and a big yay for foreigners is title insurance. I'll tell you, I went back to Peru after like 20 years of not going back. And what I found really particular was that I would drive around and I would see houses. And you know how here we have houses that say for sale and they have a number. I'm used to that. But over there would be houses and it would say not for sale. We are not selling this property, in Spanish, of course. We're not selling this. And they will put a phone number, not for sale. And I'm like, why are there so many properties that say not for sale, put a phone number? That makes no sense to me. And then they explained to me that in Peru, for example, some people might trick you into thinking they're the owners, sell you the property, you give them the money, and then you realize that they didn't really own it. And I'm like, but wait, isn't there title insurance? Isn't there a title search? Isn't there a lien search? Like, what's going on? And they told me, no, what? What are you talking about? That's very foreign to us. That doesn't exist here. And then I'm like, wow, what other countries don't have title insurance? And none of them do except the United States. So we are really lucky that we have title insurance in the United States, and foreigners are really lucky too, and they need to understand this. Title insurance is an insurance that protects you in the past. So basically, whenever we do a closing, us as agents, we are insurance agents, we are insuring that title. We're saying we reviewed everything from the time of the cocodriles until now, and ownership has passed as it needed to pass. And if anybody makes a claim, we are going to insure you up to the price that you're paying for the property, right? That's what title insurance covers. We're going to defend, we're going to do everything, we're going to stand behind it up to the purchase price that you're paying. So it is so important, title insurance. And that's why I try to explain to clients when they ask me, what is that insurance? It protects you against forgery or fraud. It protects you against the levy of taxes on real properties. It protects you about the lack of right of access, right? If you cannot access the property, unpaid mortgages, other liens, easements, or rights of way that limit the use of property, the non-marketability of title. It protects you against a probate that didn't happen, that should have happened. I mean, title insurance is amazing, right? Also, when we do that title search, when we examine title, this is when we run into problems too that may allow us not to insure. Like maybe the owner is not really the owner and needs to go through a probate process. And that is what we tell the client, hey, we need to do this first. But you know, many of those things can happen. However, most of the time, we're able to issue title insurance as soon as the closing is done. And clients, buyers, foreigners need to understand this is such a valuable insurance because nobody's going to be able to, they're going to be able to contest your ownership, but you're going to be insured up to the purchase price. And the title insurance company has their own attorneys, right? And they're huge companies that will defend and protect your title. That is why it's so important. Title insurance is one of the most important things. I always like to tell clients that. And yes, deed fraud happens. We see it a lot. We do a lot of quiet title actions because sometimes we see things on title that we're like, wait, that shouldn't be there. So we'll do quiet title actions over the state of Florida. We'll do the probate if a probate didn't happen that should have happened. We'll do all of those things. Now be careful. Doing quick claim deeds after you have received title insurance eliminates the title insurance of the new person that's getting the quick claim deed. Because in order for you to get title insurance, you have to get the policy issued. So it's not good, and I've seen this, where they do a closing, they'll buy it on property, on person A, and then 2 weeks later, they're doing a quick claim deed because they didn't put it on their LLC, and now that LLC has no title insurance. So a quick claim deed eliminates title insurance unless the policy is reissued. So be careful with that. Let's see, we have anything else? I don't have any other slides for you guys, but I do want to answer any questions. If you have any questions, I don't see anything in the Q&A. I'm going to put my email here. My email is romy@juradolawfirm.com. And then my phone number is 305-921-0976. So that you guys can reach out to me by email, by phone, or I'm also in all of social media all over the place with my name, Romy Jurado. I don't know if anybody has any questions. You can put it in the chat or the Q&A. If not, well, I want to thank everybody for attending. Thank you so much. I hope I have been able to give you some information. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me by email, by phone. I look forward to helping all of you and your clients close more deals in the state of Florida. Thank you so much.